tonight. Documents show the provincial government had no formal consultation before it announced its parental rights policy earlier this year. Also, more details about the future of the Lighthouse in Saskatoon. Plus, the latest information and local reaction on new electric vehicle regulations in Canada.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Tuesday, December 19th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening and thank you for watching. The Saskatchewan government has maintained that its controversial pronoun policy was drafted after plenty of consultation. Our reporter Alexander Kwan has obtained internal documents through a Freedom of Information request, and those documents reveal there were no formal consultations.
This summer, the Saskatchewan government received 18 letters calling for it to adopt a policy around pronoun use in schools. One letter called on the government to stop the implementation of the radical, evil indoctrination of sexual orientation and gender identity in schools. Other letters described the LGBTQ community as trendy and destructive and inappropriate. The letters were released to CBC News as part of an access to information request as we tried to understand how the province created its controversial pronoun policy. The policy directs schools to require parental consent before allowing a student under 16 to use a different gender-related name or pronoun. The Premier insists the policy was based on private conversations.
Our MLAs talk to a great many of people, parents, teachers across the province. I understand and learned through the court process that there was 18 letters that were sent to the Ministry of Education, which I was not aware of.
CBC also requested a list of organizations consulted with to develop the policy. All we got back was a jurisdictional scan, essentially a document that breaks down how other provinces, territories, and countries handle pronoun changes at school. This political scientist says the evidence does not suggest a need for such drastic action.
The political lobbying is minimal at best. I mean, minimal almost isn't a strong enough word to describe how minimal this actually is. 18 people is not a significant political push. So the question is, what was driving the government? It clearly isn't 18 emails to the minister or to the Premier's office. Something else is clearly happening here. Likely political calculations.
The official opposition says the decision to not have clear public consultations makes no sense.
I have not yet in my time in this building seen any piece of legislation come forward that was pinned on conversations that happened at the grocery store. That's not how legislation is made in this province or really in any other democratic jurisdiction.
The province would not answer any questions seeking clarity on the lack of evidence of any consultations. The policy is now enshrined in legislation, with the notwithstanding clause shielding it from any legal challenges. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
Regina City Council's marathon of budget meetings is done. Next year's budget ultimately passed 7-4. It happened last night, despite some councillors wanting to ask questions and potentially propose amendments. Mayor Sandra Masters voted no and says some people made concessions just to be done with it.
You know what? At the end of the day, it is approved. It's approved. That's the voice of council, and it's going to be what it's going to be.
Council decided on a 2.85% mill rate increase on the city's capital and operational budgets, plus a utility rate hike of 3%, 1% less than originally recommended by city administration. The average Regina homeowner will pay $5.70 more a month, or $68.40 extra a year on utilities. As for property taxes, it works out to a monthly increase of $5.57, or $66.84 more over the year. The inflation rate held steady at 3.1% last month. That's according to the latest data released today by Statistics Canada. Most economists were expecting the rate to drop in November, but mortgage interest costs and high rents contributed to the inflation rate. Higher prices for clothing, recreation, and travel tours also pushed up consumer costs. Meanwhile, the pace of grocery prices continued to slow for the 5th consecutive month. We're learning more about the future of the Lighthouse supported living towers in downtown Saskatoon. The province announced yesterday that it's buying the buildings. The housing division at Social Services is spending $11 million to make the deal happen. It plans on moving out the 122 people living there, 50 of whom are on the supportive housing side. And then the buildings will be sold.
Over the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to be working with our community partners and with the people who live there to identify what supports each of those folks needs to move into the appropriate housing for them. So some people will need support moving to subsidized housing, others will need support moving into to more supportive housing.
The actual cash purchase price is $2.5 million. That includes the supportive tower and independent living tower. The rest of the $11 million is the government paying off an $8.5 million loan to the Lighthouse. The government takes possession in the first week of January. As we get closer to the end of the year, it gives us all an opportunity to look back on the events of 2023 and see what goals are in place for 2024. This week, we sat down with RCMP Assistant Commissioner Rhonda Blackmore, and she shared why the force has put such an emphasis on recruiting Indigenous people.
Almost half the population is Indigenous. It's the fastest growing demographic, and the RCMP here in Saskatchewan hasn't done a great job in the last number of years in being able to recruit Indigenous applicants. And so the focus has really been on connecting with those individuals. Everyone's aware, the RCMP's past with Indigenous people has been strained at times. There's some pretty significant black marks on our history with Indigenous peoples, but we've worked very hard over the last number of years to work on increasing the trust, rebuilding that trust in those communities. But we still haven't done a great job of connecting. And our Indigenous recruiting unit is doing exactly that. We have different ways of communicating. We're using posters, old school posters, and it's been very successful in communities. We've translated those posters into Dene, into Cree, into Saulteaux, into Michif, so that people see their language represented in RCMP hiring practices. Years back, the CO of the day, Harper Boucher, had a vision and utilized our now Lieutenant Governor Russ Morasti, who was responsible for what was then called Aboriginal policing. And they were successful in having 3 Indigenous troops from Saskatchewan go through depot, and all those individuals all came back to Saskatchewan. And incredibly successful. We've had so many positive initiatives, and they've given so much to this province. But those individuals went through training in 2000, and they're seriously getting close to retirement age, where they might like to actually enjoy some of the other aspects of life rather than just policing. And so we have a large number of those Indigenous RCMP members who we could potentially lose from the organization through retirement in the next couple of years. And we want to make sure we maintain that representation in Saskatchewan. And I think the only way we can do that is if we really focus on our applicants out there and offer them the opportunity to join the RCMP. And having that specific focus with Indigenous applicants through our Indigenous recruiting unit has resulted in lots of interest. But the great part is when you speak to these applicants, they want to see change in their community. They've seen some of the social issues. They've seen the problems in their communities, and they want to be the person who helps drive that change. And it is so uplifting and so positive, and it gives you so much hope for the future that these applicants, they're going to help make change. And it's just a great initiative.
For more of our year-end interviews with community leaders, head to cbc.ca/sask, or you can find them on the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. Tomorrow you'll hear from the mayors of Regina and Saskatoon. Automakers are being hit with new electric vehicle regulations from Ottawa today. All new cars in Canada will have to be zero emissions by 2035. Ashwarya Duda has local reaction.
The federal government is pumping the brakes on gas-powered vehicles, but some people in Saskatchewan are concerned about the required infrastructure and costs. An electric vehicle owner and environmental historian from the University of Saskatchewan believes charging infrastructure shouldn't be a problem by 2035.
Tesla and Flow Power have installed superchargers in Yorkton and in Kindersley. So that really opens up most of the province, is now pretty accessible.
He says driving from Saskatchewan to longer destinations like BC or even San Francisco is now possible without any detours. But in these days of inflation, it's not easy to find an affordable electric vehicle.
There just isn't a vehicle like the Toyota Corolla, the relatively inexpensive car that many people rely on, that you can buy used and drive for a long, long time.
Clifford says that over the next 20 years, he's expecting that people will transition to electric cars. New regulations will ensure that supply is available and shrink wait times. Despite reports earlier this year that electric cars were languishing on car lots, data shows a growing demand. Purchase incentives in provinces like BC and Quebec have helped the transition to electric vehicles. But in Saskatchewan, no such incentives exist and sales are behind.
Over the last year, we've definitely seen the demand grow in electric vehicles. REV actually stands for Regina Electric Vehicles. So this whole business was started on the terms of the demand actually growing for electric vehicles.
But the Saskatchewan government isn't in the business of helping that growth. SGI actually charges EV drivers a $150 annual fee for road improvement instead of offering incentives, leaving many drivers in Saskatchewan waiting for more affordable electric vehicle or hybrid options. Ashwarya Duda, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Beauty shot of the many geese still on the river in Saskatoon. Thursday is the first day of winter, but you never know it by looking at these guys. What is to come as we roll through the last official day of fall? Ethan has your forecast after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. This warmer weather has made life a bit easier for a man running solo across Canada. John Nabbs is from New Zealand, and he's crossing Canada on foot to raise money for cancer. He did not expect the Saskatchewan leg of this trip to be so balmy. Our camera caught up with him just outside Regina.
I'm on a mission to run all the way across Canada from St. John's, Newfoundland to Victoria, BC. And I'm doing the whole thing dressed up as Superman. I'm doing it totally unsupported, just with a baby stroller containing all of my stuff. And the whole idea is raising funds for Childhood Cancer Canada and the Child Cancer Foundation of New Zealand, which is where I come from. The reason I'm doing this is that cancer has touched my family quite heavily. So 3 years ago, I lost my dad to skin cancer. And then 2 years ago, I lost my mum to bowel cancer. So I knew that with what I had seen in Canada through Terry Fox, through his journey, and the amount that Canadian society has really got on board with what Terry Fox started in the years since he passed away, I knew that there would be an empathy for what I was trying to do and for what my family had gone through. The fundraising goal for the end of the whole thing by the time I get to Victoria, BC is 60,000 Canadian. So far we're up to about 34,000, so it's going really well. It's been a slow build. At the start I was just running along the roads pretty anonymous, and the fundraising was very slow to build, and then just in recent weeks it's been picking up big time. I've got gear, tent, sleeping bag, capable of doing like an Arctic expedition, and I'm happy that it's nice and warm. We've got this warm weather pattern this winter. I mean, I know I shouldn't say this, but I think if I get all the way through to the finish and I don't have a real good cold couple of Canadian winter days, I'll sort of feel as though I haven't had the full experience. So I'm probably going to regret saying that later, but I do hope I do get to see a couple of real cold Canadian days.
This weather update is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz Regina, proud member of the Capital Automotive Group.
And our weather specialist, Ethan Williams, joins me now. He's going to have to crawl and hope that those cold days actually happen.
Well, he doesn't have to go that far to get some really classic cold Canadian weather, Sam, because You go into northern Saskatchewan, and this cold front has passed by, and we are sitting at -30 in Collins Bay. You know, he's made it this far across the country, might as well just go north now at this point. But you can see just the wide temperature contrast that we have in the province. It's a 30-degree temperature contrast. You go from -30 at Collins Bay to the freezing mark at Maple Creek. High pressure locked in place, bringing a good blast of Arctic air to the north. This is, you know, it seems like these are maybe record temperatures, but this is pretty much normal for the north for this time of year, actually. We've just been spoiled with the warm weather. In the south, we're talking about something else we haven't really seen a whole lot of this year or this fall, and that is the snow. Just a little bit of it being picked up on radar here and there as a low pressure system moves through Alberta. And there is a possibility that places like Regina, Saskatoon, over toward the Parklands could see a bit more of that as that system intensifies just a little bit this evening. But it's really going to get going as we head through the north tomorrow. That's also going to warm up your temperatures in northern Saskatchewan. We should get clearing through the day, especially in southern Saskatchewan and in Regina. Saskatoon will likely see some clearing skies as well. That'll be the case for Thursday before another system starts to make its way through the north, and this one a little bit messier with the warmer weather, possibly some rain mixed in there. I think this model's maybe a little bit generous here, but a good 1 to 3 centimeters possible in places just northeast of Regina. You know, nothing to break out the ski pants out about or anything like that. I don't think you'll be cross-country skiing, but even a little bit of white stuff on the ground, maybe some skiffs of it here and there tomorrow morning. Again, the real snow, though, going to be through northern Saskatchewan, and this model's been pretty consistent through the day, 6 to 7 centimeters in the far north, where the heaviest of that will be falling, and winds are going to pick up as that system starts to move through as well, starting tonight in the 30 to 40 range, and then as we get through tomorrow, I think these are probably undershooting a little bit. Regina, Yorkton, we could see gusts maybe in the 50 to 60 range before those start to die down as we head into Thursday. And we are seeing a little bit of a ridge starting to develop here in our jet stream again as we head toward the end of the weekend through kind of the eastern prairies and through much of southern Saskatchewan. So that means our temperatures will continue just to increase until then as we continue to see things clear out. Again, a little bit on the windy side tomorrow. As we head into the weekend, we're looking at sunshine continuing with highs near the freezing mark for Saturday, just below that on Sunday, and then for Christmas Day, well, looking at really not Christmassy conditions at all. Mix of sun and cloud around -4. That's actually not a bad temperature, really, for Christmas Day. For Saskatoon, first day of winter starts fittingly with some minus temperatures, but then we're right back into the at or above seasonal conditions heading through the rest of this week, Sam.
All right. Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
We'll have more news after the break. Weeks of ominous rumblings have given way to a spectacular volcanic eruption in Iceland. So far, there's no real threat from the volcano, just an incredible, fiery display of nature. Dominic Velitis has the latest.
Some stunning pictures of this eruption coming out of Iceland today, giving us a close-up bird's eye view of what's happening on the Reykjanes Peninsula. It started just after 10:15 p.m. local time, about 4 kilometers or so from the small fishing town of Grindavik. The authorities were prepared. Weeks of intense earthquake activity suggested an eruption was on the cards, and Grindavik's entire population was evacuated as a precaution last month. That's about 4,000 people. The Icelandic Meteorological Office says the power of the eruption is decreasing and, crucially, no longer flowing in the direction of the town. Experts, though, are warning that gas pollution could increase near the capital Reykjavik by this evening or tomorrow morning as a result. The authorities are now working to determine if that will pose a significant hazard to people or not. A lot of people were wondering if this particular eruption would cause the same level of disruption as the Eyjafjallajökull volcanic eruption back in 2010. The ash cloud that produced led to the largest closure of European airspace since the Second World War, leaving passengers stranded all over the place and costing the airline industry billions of dollars. The good news is that experts think this one won't have the same impact.
What came out in 2010 was a type of magma that fragments very easily into fine ash. And the combination of weather, wind, and dry conditions meant this ash was in the sky for a very long time. And also Western Europe was very unprepared for this, despite the fact scientists knew this was very likely. They weren't being listened to, so it was almost inevitable that would happen.
So as impressive as it looks, this eruption unlikely to have any wider implications for aviation, as we saw back in 2010. Indeed, the authorities say Reykjavik International Airport is still open today, with international flights taking off and landing as normal. Dominic Velitis, CBC News, London.
And Ethan's back with one last look at your weather. Nothing spectacular happening with Mother Nature here.
No, the only thing, though, first time in a while I've had to put snow in our forecast here for Regina. The possibility of it anyway. You notice those winds starting to pick up, though, overnight. We'll see those continue into tomorrow morning. Snow should be gone by then. Mostly cloudy, but maybe a few breaks of sun here and there. And then by the afternoon, we could see some gusts of wind close to 60 kilometers an hour. Sun and cloud will get some more clearing as we head through the afternoon. For Saskatoon, a better chance actually for you that we could see some flurries tonight before we get to tomorrow morning, and the clearing comes to you first for the most part. Not quite as windy, but we'll be seeing those clouds clearing and getting near the freezing mark on our way to some pretty nice temperatures tomorrow, Sam.
Ooh, a potential white Christmas.
Well, just maybe.
So long as it doesn't melt.
Yeah, of course.
All right, thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
And before we leave you, we do want to share a Christmas tradition in Isle Cross that always delights hundreds of children and adults too. Every 2 years, Brenda Morin builds a giant advent calendar in her front yard filled with gifts to give away. And then she draws names as she counts down to Christmas.
The girls' calendar is this one on this side. I always wanted to do things for the kids. So I thought, well, this is my way of doing something for them. The first year we did one for boys and girls combined. And we had got over 250 names. And then the second time we did it, we did 2 calendars, one for boys and one for girls. Merry Christmas. Well, this year we did 3. We got one for boys, one for girls, and we're trying out adults. It means a lot for a lot of people. They enjoy it watching and watching the kids come and pick up their gifts. And here she comes. For the girls, there's Barbies, makeup kits, and for the boys, the cars, game boards, and for the little ones that get excited, the smiles on their faces. And I added elders this year in the adult calendars, and they really enjoy their gifts when they receive them. My family, my mother was a very kind woman when she was alive. So that inspired me to help out kids. She always had something for the kids. So that inspired me to do something for the kids as well here. Just to see the kids smile after they get their gifts, it's priceless.
Some nice holiday inspiration. That is it for us tonight. For news anytime, head to our website, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or download the CBC News app. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great night.